niece, nephew, auntie, uncle, interested parties in the expat space. Today we are going to have a difficult conversation. Today we are going to discuss the recent communist, anti-foreigner, xenophobic riots down in Mexico City. We're going to talk about the difference between a country like Mexico, living as an expat with a strong passport from a Western country, versus Southeast Asia. And we're going to talk about Southeast Asia kind of broadly, but I will point out specific countries to make points, so that way you guys can kind of see where my mind's coming from. And the reason why I'm grouping all of Southeast Asia is just because Mexico itself is an enormous country. You know, it's a big country, and I think it's often thought of by people in places like the US as a poor country, when really it's actually a middle income country, and it's like pretty developed. It's actually the richest country in South America. So like this idea that it's this poor country, when in reality it's just really, really, really corrupt, and they don't want to take care of their own citizens, so they allow them to basically survive by coming into our country illegally or doing things like that. You know, there's a huge wealthy class in Mexico. You know, there's a huge highly educated class there as well, and there's people who are you know, of all different political backgrounds and persuasions. Like really it is basically a Western country. Like I kind of consider a lot of Latin America to be Western. You know, I mean, they probably could be kind of classified more as like South America, like global South, right? But Mexico's a North American country. So once again, strong, like big economy for Latin America. There's lots and lots of rich people. So let's just like set the parameters of the discussion before we begin. You know, Southeast Asia itself is emerging. Some of the countries are catching up to the standards of Mexico in terms of like GDP and that kind of thing. But you know, they're not bordering the biggest market in the world. So I'm gonna kind of group them together a little bit. And like I said, I'll make specific examples, so don't you worry about it, little niece, little nephew. Before we get into it, guys, I want to remind you all that if you're enjoying this content, your big uncle does hourly consulting. Your big uncle also does coaching. I'll help you figure out the situations in your life. I'll help you get a business plan started. I'll help you figure out how to go from something you're doing that you're not happy with, like a shitty job, and I'll help you figure out how to take it to the next level and do something different with yourself. Big uncle will also do full relocation packages. So if you just want to land in any of these countries and have like an existing network in place, Big Uncle's been in this region for over a decade. I thought about going to Mexico City actually. So during the pandemic, you know, Southeast Asia got a little bit wacky. Some places better than others. Vietnam, it got a little bit wacky. And I was looking at getting out of there. I was like, I'm not sticking around. I had Vietnamese friends telling me, yo, if you don't need to be here, don't stay. And these are like people who I did a lot of business with and I really trust. You know? And you know, I took their advice. But one of the places that I could have flown to directly was Mexico City. And I was very interested in it. Like, I mean, I'm from North America. I grew up, I have a lot of Mexican friends. Like, I love their food. I love their, even their Americanized food. I've had both. I've had like stuff in neighborhoods where it's mostly Mexican people eating it. And I've had stuff that is like more made for us, you know, or like Tex-Mex or whatever you would call it. Like the country is really, 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 really fucked. It's like, it's really fucked down there. And like, they can't really control it, right? So they've got this commie that they've elected to be, I guess, their president, some Marxist Jewish lady. And, you know, now suddenly you have anti-gentrification protests. But, you know, the thing that upsets me about this, because your big uncle likes to live in objective reality, is that if you think about how many people from their country that come into our country to either work illegally or to even work legally, on like, you know, the cross-border visas for like certain industries, like in a lot of the agricultural industries, there are actually visaed people coming up from Mexico every year to do agricultural work, and it's legal, totally legal. You know, so the situation over there, like no matter how you look at it, whether it's through them working in the middle-class jobs that are in, you know, a place like Tijuana that were once in Detroit, right? They are basically siphoning off of our economy as a way to prevent their government from actually having to like take care of their people or provide any kind of social services, because we all know that their government's all tied in with like the mafia and shit like that out there. It's a very scary country. Like I have a friend out there who I do business with for like clients who want to go to Mexico. And he went to like Mexico's Harvard. Like him and his boys are lawyers, and they all do like relocation stuff, but for Mexico, you know, and much respect. And I know there's some really beautiful destinations, and I was really interested. I was like, you know, this would be a place like, man, it's got everything. But when you start to follow like what's going on, you know, you see is like, you see a lot of cartel problems. The border is still crazy. Now you've got these people who are going around Mexico City, and they're just destroying foreigners' businesses with like the assumption that, of course, all foreigners are rich, right? You know, not that there's rich people in their country also, right? Like, so this is the problem with the left's narrative is it doesn't really take into account the rest of the world. It's like, oh, only white people can be racist. It's like, have you ever been to Southeast Asia? Like, white people are like the least racist people in the world. Like, we live with everybody, you know? Like, and honestly, all the European countries and the new Western countries really ever ask is learn the language and assimilate, you know? Like, you know, like Southeast Asia, man, if you were a foreigner, like a Western foreigner, and you're trying to come into these societies, like even the ones where there's technically a way for it to happen, is very atypical that any foreigners ever get any kind of citizenship in these countries, because they want to maintain their culture, you know, like. And Mexico is already more complicated because they have like a huge, obviously, like blend of people who are like more European and more native, and so it's not as like, you know, monoculture as Southeast Asia. You know, and it's close to the US. So of course, like I said, I feel like it's still kind of a Western country, you know, and that comes with those type of issues. You know, like everybody's yo, I gotta blast that fool, you know, like Southeast Asia is really not like that though, you know. So like I'll tell you guys, I'm not like someone who's gonna lie to you. I've been out here a really long time. I've seen crazy shit go on in this country. I'm in Cambodia at the moment, and I've seen crazy shit go on pretty much in all these countries, but particularly in this country. And I still feel 10 million times safer than I would ever in the United States. And the United States is safer than Mexico. So, well, I mean, I know there's places in Mexico technically safer than the United States. Everyone will point to Merida or whatever. But like when you really start to get into it, it's like, you know, if the politics were to shift like harshly against you, you know, which you're seeing in Mexico City, you know, you're the gentrifier if you're from the West. Ooh, the evil gentrifier. You mean the person bringing capital? You mean the person who's like employing local people, paying rent to a Mexican? You know what I mean? Like who do you think owns their buildings? I'm sure there's some foreign investment. I mean, listen, I'm from New York. You ain't got to tell me about gentrification. Your big uncle has witnessed gentrification, and do you think I can afford to buy a home in the city I grew up in? I mean, let's be real. What makes that different for me than it does for someone in Mexico City, right? Like, so you know, like we're American, so we should just like put up with it, right? Like, we're racist if we don't take in the whole world, right? But you in Mexico, you don't want the investors. That's the part that I don't understand. You know, like, I just don't understand it. Like, they're bringing capital to your country. And even if they're not working in the local economy, it's even better. They're not taking a job, and they're dumping money into your country. It's not the gringo that is the problem. It's the government not managing the affairs of their citizens. Like, if housing is a problem, build fucking housing. This shit ain't rocket science. You know, there's ways for them to do it. They have smart people down there. They have a sophisticated country. Like I said, it's a middle income country. It's not like we're talking about Rwanda here, you know? So it's just they don't want to. It's easier to, like, you know, live off our economy. And, you know, if you don't think all the illegal stuff going on down there is going into our economy, then you're crazy. Now, I'm not saying all that shit don't go on in Southeast Asia. Guys, listen, let's be real. Southeast Asia is crazy. So in the cities where China has a strong presence, man, those places are loose. I mean, I'm not gonna lie to you. There's human trafficking. There's lots of crazy stuff, lots of shady money laundering going on. And not just Cambodia, I mean, like, literally all these countries. Anywhere you see a Chinese casino, it's a bit loose, right? Anywhere that they have their footprint in Southeast Asia, it gets dark. And they have the scam call centers. There's a place out here called the Golden Triangle Special Economic Zone. It's in Laos. And it's clickbait. People make videos about it because it's the human trafficking capital of Southeast Asia. And you see it, man. You see it. People who, you know, they're coming from like countries sometimes like Philippines, places like that, you know, and they'll come out thinking, oh, man, I can get a decent job in Cambodia and Vietnam. And it's like, you can, you know, but you can also get human trafficked. Like Indonesia, seems like it happens to a lot of them too. I mean, is no such thing as heaven on earth. There's no such thing as paradise. So the cities where China has not made much of a presence, you still have some of the true gems. The places where you can really have that Southeast Asian cultural experience, like here in Siem Reap, Luang Prabang in Laos, I would say Dalat in Vietnam, just to name a couple. Penang is a big international city, but it's worth mentioning. There's a lot of Chinese there, but it's very good Chinese. It's like Malaysian Chinese. It's Chinese from, you know, the people who got out and are more capitalist in their thinking. So it's another city I would add to just a special place here in Southeast Asia. And you know, Southeast Asia has problems. Like, there's still slavery in Southeast Asia. Like, there's no such thing as human rights in Southeast Asia. But like, you know, there is actually like some real negatives. I mean, you get some really degenerate foreigners that'll come to these countries because, you know, it's a lower cost of living, and because they're a foreigner, they'll have access to you know, maybe women that are out of their league, or drugs, or things that they would maybe like either have a harder time accessing, or would be more expensive where they're from. And it may be also more strict. Here is very permissive. So people come out here and they fuck their lives up, or, you know, if they're mentally ill, they just get worse and worse and more crazy. So that exists here too, right? Because there's a lot of freedom in that way. So Southeast Asia is not without its issues. But I can tell you guys, as being an expat in this region for over a decade, no one is going to attack you here in the streets and call you a gentrifier or a colonist. In fact, it's quite the opposite. You'll be warmly received as long as you come from a country that has a good reputation for behaving itself. Like, yeah, the Khmer here, like Cambodia, for example, they see degenerates from the West, but they also see people who come here, open charities, dedicate their lives to Cambodia, and become part of the society, and really truly integrate as much as a foreigner possibly can in Southeast Asia. You even have this in Vietnam, you know, to an extent. The Vietnamese are maybe a little bit more strict with it, and the Khmer are too, but the Vietnamese is very, very hard for a foreigner to be recognized into that society. But again, there are these instances of people who do, or at least people who keep their visas in good standing and spend the rest of their lives there, and I guess, like I said, integrate as much as a foreigner can, right? So there's all these different stories, but there are also people who come out here and just like smoke crack and like harass people and like end up in Khmer prisons. There's pedophiles, there's degenerates. Thailand has this, you know, all the countries try to deal with it in different ways. Some more than others. Cambodia, for example, has come a really long way with the pedophile stuff. And it's another good example of like foreigners who've done a lot of good out here from the West. So there is like, even though there is like obviously a very strong relationship with China here, there is not like an anger or a hostility to the Western foreigners. And in fact, it's quite the opposite. A lot of the Western foreigners are viewed as people who, you know, come here, they do a lot of good, they help people with clean water, they help people with English. And some of it is the USAID stuff, and I know there was some not so good things going on in that, but you know, this is just an NGO heavy place, and in general, guys, any place that has a lot of NGOs has a lot of sketchy operators, but also some NGOs that do a lot of good, right? Like, so my homeboy works for one of the ones that like chases down pedophiles and whatnot. So foreigners are viewed here as like pretty much a positive thing, at least in Cambodia. In Vietnam, I think in the South, they definitely like foreigners more because they're more used to foreigners. And you know, the South of Vietnam has a very similar vibe to Cambodia in a lot of respects. Okay, so the North, it's more closed. It was closed longer, you know, so it has more of a kind of, I guess you can almost compare it to Chinese, but like Vietnamese, you know, pretty pure in a way, right? And it's cool, like it's cool for a tourist, but it's maybe not always like the best to like live, work, and do business with that type of mindset. You know, the South, where the people are warmer, where it's more like Cambodia, is where all the money comes from. Saigon makes all the money for Vietnam. It's the economic center of the country. It's kind of like in America how we have New York, and then we also have DC. Or in China, there's Beijing and Shanghai. This is not an uncommon configuration. So at the moment, there's a conflict going on over on the border of Cambodia and Thailand. It's ongoing. It's been going on for a pretty long time. There was a flare-up recently where a Cambodian soldier got shot, and there's been some issues on the Thai side. Obviously, you got some things going on the Thai side. That's all I'm gonna say about that. But it hasn't really affected us too much. Like, life in Siem Reap's good. I mean, the only thing that's kind of negative is cheese and milk are very expensive. Kind of hard to find milk in the stores. All the restaurants have bought it. Other than that, really, it's pretty normal. I actually seen a lot more tourists in town this week, which is cool. Siem Reap's a great city, guys. And listen, when you come to these countries, the reason why you're getting a low cost of living is that these are developing countries. So they're gonna have crazy stuff happening and things that you don't understand, and there'll be some negatives that you will understand, like things like pollution, traffic, congestion. But it sounds like a place like Mexico City has all those problems and crazy violence, and it's not that cheap. It's just not really that cheap of a place to live. You know, Southeast Asia, you could get a much cooler apartment out here, even in one of the big cities. And I'm telling you, man, you could be in the center of Saigon. It's a huge city, like well over 10 million people, and it's safe. I mean, there's no bad neighborhood. I mean, there's poor neighborhoods, like, and there's people who live in slums, but there's not like a I don't know how to explain it in the West, like a ghetto culture. Like, you know, it's not like that. Like, people, if they're poor, but they still have like a small business, like they're trying to get their kids to learn English. It's just like everybody else. It's just they're in a different stage. You know, some people have more resources and some don't, you know, it's just what it is. So there isn't this like yo thing. No one's gonna like run up on you with a gun out here. Like, now you might get your phone stolen in like Phnom Penh, or you could maybe possibly something crazy happen in Phnom Penh, but it would be very uncommon. Like, I was there for like 2 years, and in the 2 years I saw a couple crazy things. Like, there was an assassination outside of my apartment. Like, a Vietnamese dude was assassinated by a group of Vietnamese people over some kind of thing. I don't know what it was about. I heard some rumors. And he lived in my building, so they shot him, like, and he ran towards my building and dropped dead in front of the building. I was like, so that was crazy. And we thought it was fireworks. We were looking out at the balcony, and there's like a guy laid out in the street bleeding. So that was nuts. But it wasn't a Khmer person. It was a Vietnamese on Vietnamese. You know, it had nothing to do with Khmer people. So, you know, you don't have that kind of shit going on here in Siem Reap. It's chill out here. This is the cultural tourism. This is the good side of the culture. You get to see the temples, and, you know, the people have like really amazing way of living, and it's just it's a nice place. And you can't build taller than the World Heritage Site, so the buildings are all low rise, like, which may in the end create traffic and problems, but it is vibe right now. You know, it's like, my opinion, Chiang Mai maybe 10 years ago, something like that, before everybody came and they destroyed it. But I heard this year that Siem Reap is now #1 for like one of these like TripAdvisor or one of these lists. So I shudder to think. The first time I came here was like 13 years ago, and it was really dusty, like outside of Pub Street, where like right where the big bookstore and the place that sells all the postcards on the end of Pub Street, like towards the river. Like, I remember the first time I stayed out there, it was like super dusty once you got past that point, and it's just very different. And now it's really come a long way. It's really nice. Siem Reap is really a wonderful city, and they've done a lot. It's probably, in my opinion, the nicest place that a foreigner for sure could live in Cambodia. Aside from obviously Koh Rong, like Paradise Island life, right? You can live in this part of the world whether you want an urban life like in Ho Chi Minh City or in Bangkok. And even in Bangkok, with the current problems, even like with the expat drama going on over visas recently, and the vibe that they don't want you there. Trust me, they still want you there more than that. Like, ain't nobody gonna come kicking your business's windows in. It's just not likely to happen, because even though the Thais at times like act like they don't really want the foreigners there, but they're the ones who pretty much set up their economy around the foreigners, and they're by far the most developed for tourism infrastructure, medical infrastructure, medical tourism. Mexico gets that too, but I mean, damn, you're trying to recover. It's, you know, Thailand has gotten more expensive, but I've seen the prices in central Mexico City, and even Thailand, with the inflation, with the current, you know, stresses over there, it's still safer, it's still cheaper, it's still got like probably similar infrastructure, maybe not like as many, like, well, actually I would say probably similar, maybe even more so than Mexico, because I would think Mexico has areas that are less developed in Thailand, because even if you go into provincial Thailand, there's sometimes pretty decent highways. Like, I mean, obviously not everywhere, but comparatively to the neighbors and whatnot in this region, and I have not spent a lot of time in Mexico, so I don't have an opinion on Mexico as an expat. I have an opinion on Mexico as Mexico's neighbor, growing up in the United States and living around Mexican people. And I've had more or less really good experiences with Mexican people. Like, I've had some of my boys in Brooklyn who are tattoo artists that were Mexican dudes, and they always say, oh, ole way, que paso way. I learned way. And they're cool people, man, and they're good. They pay taxes, they're in the country legally. They're good tattoo artists, man, just like decent people, you know, and I love them. I love the food. I love the culture. I was really seriously thinking about living down there. But like, when you see stuff like this happening, where they're just xenophobically attacking the foreigners and kill Gringo and this type of shit, it's like, why would you want to be in a place like that? It's a bit expensive. It's dangerous. You got to worry about all this stuff, you know. Here, you got some things you got to watch. You got to watch the geopolitics a little bit. Like, you're in a developing country. If you think that you're going to pay the cost of living you pay in a place like this, and it's not going to come with a little bit of something, then, you know, you're just not being honest with yourself. Southeast Asia has issues. Don't get it twisted. But, you know, no one's going to come put a gun in your face. You're not going to have mobs like destroying your business or, you know, a condo that has a lot of foreigners, unless something really crazy geopolitically happened. Like, if there was going to be some kind of a conflict between like your country and out here, yeah, that's a whole different thing. But if it's, you know, you're just out here. I've been out here now for a pretty long time. I've only had a couple weird situations where things got like a little bit more aggressive than it should have, and it was almost always with foreigners. I've never had it happen with the Vietnamese. I never had it happen in Thailand. I never had it happen in Cambodia, at least with any of the local people, you know, because there's a set of cultural rules, and if you follow them and respect them, you know, you're good. I mean, I'm not even kidding you guys, you're good. Like, if you respect the social norms, it doesn't matter if you're gay, straight, doesn't matter if you're a foreigner, it doesn't matter if you're white. Well, it does matter if you're white. But it doesn't even, like, say you're not white. It doesn't matter that much. As long as you can find a way to be polite enough, everybody will be polite with you. That doesn't mean they like you, but they'll be polite with you. And that maintains social order. So, you know, they particularly love white Westerners in Southeast Asia. That's something that is, you know, able to open doors for you. But, you know, a lot of reason why they like the white foreigners is because a lot of the white foreigners bring a lot of investment, charity, they work as teachers, you know, and of course you have non-white foreigners who do this also, but it's just that, you know, these countries have limited experience sometimes with people from other places. Like, Cambodia has a lot of foreigners in general, so in a lot of ways you could kind of consider Cambodia to be one of the less racist places in Southeast Asia. But the more the place is closed, like, you know, I was talking before about how the north of Vietnam was closed for like a really long time, the more some of the ideas that are there may not have caught up with development. And this is where liberals in the West are really stupid, is they've never been anywhere. So it's really easy to say only white people are racist when you've actually never been to a developing country and you have no fucking idea at all what you're talking about. Or, you know, there's crazy shit goes on in the world over ethnic group, and you know, just trying to put everybody into categories of, you know, white this or your skin color, black or skin color. It's like most of the wars throughout history are people killing people who look like them because that's who's near to you. You know, as technology advanced, that changed, but this region has changed hands a lot between Siam, Angkor, Dai Viet. So there's been a whole lot of conquering before the French got out here. And there's a lot of bad things the French did, and there's a lot of bad things the United States did out here, and it works, you know, both ways. But over time, you know, these countries have improved themselves very quickly. You know, they've developed very fast. Now you have a lot of you know, a lot of goodwill coming from the West to these countries, a lot of investment. So you don't have the same set of issues. You're gonna have some issues here, whether it's Cambodia, Laos, Vietnam, whatever, you know, and things could always get kind of crazy, you know, but you don't have to worry about like mobs of communist thugs like who hate you because you have money. And it's like, like, this is the part I don't understand, because I'm from New York and I hated what gentrification did to my city. I definitely didn't like it, but I was also a lot like less traveled. I hadn't been overseas yet, and I hadn't seen the bigger picture, you know? Like, when these places get investment, it's because some other place is not getting investment, you know? And like, you can see it right now, like Thailand's tourism numbers are going down, and Cambodia is starting to make a lot of top lists. So, you know, places like Mexico, like you can't have this if you're trying to have investment in your country. I mean, you're next to America, so you're gonna get something, but like, like I said, it's a middle income country. It's not like a super poor country. Like, this is the responsibility of their government, but you know, they are not stupid. They know if they protest against the government, which I'm sure has connections to cartels, like, they're gonna disappear, like those kids in the south of Mexico that disappeared. That is all international news. You know, I just don't want to live in a place like that, you know, and I understand why people do. It's got a lot of American services. I love Mexican food. I've heard nothing but good things about it. I'm sure it's amazing in terms of architecture, you know, nature, history, culture. Because I really looked at it, guys. I really thought about living down there. You know, I did a lot of research. I got a lot of good Mexican friends, you know, people I really care about have had my back. You know, but when I started looking into what they're doing down there, this place is a shithole. Like, you know, they've got this communist running the country as their president. You know, they're trying to run away investment. Meanwhile, I'm here in Cambodia, and people here are welcoming investment. They're like, can the foreigners please come? You know, and I'm not saying it's perfect. Like, healthcare has a way to go here, but now there's an airport that goes direct to Bangkok. So these countries in Southeast Asia that got overlooked for a very long time by the majority of people are starting to get recognized, because places like Thailand are just not so fun anymore. So now people are coming to Cambodia, Laos, you know. Philippines is also a great option if you're American and you really prioritize English and like seeing American services. The Philippines is as good as it gets. It's just you're not going to get a job. You know, and that's another thing we should talk about. Like, I've heard, if you're a TEFL teacher, I heard Mexico sucks. I heard all Latin America sucks. Like, unless you're in like some international school where like the super rich kids go, like, it's pretty much fucked. You know, so you know, you're competing with a lot of people who already speak English in their own country. So why the fuck should they employ you? You know, and I've heard the same with a lot of Latin America. Like, there's some examples in places like Colombia around business. If you built your own clientele around like business people in like Bogota, or possibly down in like Chile, but there's also financial there. Maybe you could do something like that, but that's something you go down there, you grind, you put together. Like, these countries in Southeast Asia, like Cambodia is a pretty saturated market, but if you really want to teach, you can teach. And you'll get paid more than that. You'll get paid more than Mexico. Like, I've heard of like as low as $5 an hour down in Mexico. Yikes. You know, $8 an hour. Like, you know, even in Cambodia, like a native speaker, you know, you're gonna get probably about 15 bucks an hour out here. But in Vietnam, you could get anywhere from like 18 to 25, depending on if you're qualified, or if you really want to be a proper teacher and like do international. And there's just a bigger market. Like, Cambodia is a pretty small country, like, and it's you know, it's unequal. It's the same as Mexico. It's just the problem is in Mexico that manifests itself in violence and communism, and out here it's chill. People they don't complain too much. They've lived through a horrendous war. They lived through one of the most horrific communist genocides in history, and nobody here is very aggressive. Like, they'll fuck you up if you disrespect. Like, don't come out here and think they're soft, but they're gentle people and kind. You know, they're very kind, and they'll look after you as long as you're not like a scumbag. You know, and you contribute, you'll get love back, especially in Cambodia. Vietnam, it's a big market. You know, if you're willing to put in your time, you can get rich in a country like Vietnam. Even Thailand, there's opportunities, man. Like, I personally have a lot of opportunities in Thailand, because Thailand is really trying to get the tourists to come back. But then the government's doing things that are making it like, you know, it's hard because there's a disconnect. Like, the industry wants the tourists, of course. It's just like how the economy of the whole country. But then, you know, the government's kind of like, you'll see it when you go through Bangkok these days. You see a lot of signs advertising for like Chinese factories that are trying to like skirt out of Trump's tariffs, you know? And they're trying to have them big signs in Mandarin Chinese on the highway coming from Sierpom into central Bangkok, and it would be like, you know, put your factory in our industrial park, boom, or commercial park, whatever, right? So there's like something going on over there. You know, as far as like, you know, the disconnect between the industry wanting the foreigners there, you know, there's a huge industry, guys, keeping the foreigners there, versus like whatever the opinions are of the government at the moment. But it seems like there's a lot of internal problems, so it could just be they want to keep the foreigners out for a bit, and then maybe, you know, figure out domestic issues, and then possibly do something where it's very liberal for a little while, so all the foreigners come back, and something to drive down prices, you know. So I mean, I don't know how they're going to play it. I mean, you know, Southeast Asia is a little bit unpredictable, but it's not as unpredictable as a place like Mexico, you know. I know there's places in Mexico where you probably could live every single day and never see a bit of violence. I'm sure of it. I'm positive of it. But I'm just not, you know, I mean, we're looking at big cities. Let's look at their capital city. They're burning down businesses. They're breaking windows. These people came to their country. They brought money. They invested, they put people to work. Like, yo, if you own a restaurant, you have bar staff, you have wait staff, you have fucking people to park the cars or the bikes, you have people to watch the cars and the bikes. Like, it's a business, man. You know, you're contributing to the local community. If it's a problem with housing, then it's the government that's not doing what they need to do. You know, they're not regulating the way they need to regulate. They're just letting, you know, I understand nobody wants a bunch of foreigners to come in, but I'm American. These motherfuckers have been in our ass for the last, everybody's been on our ass. The entire world has fucking been taken from us. And then people wonder why America First kind of message won the election. Everyone's clutching their pearls. It's like, because if you go to other countries are protectionist. They don't play, man. Thailand, you can't, you know, if you want to buy a business, you got to have 51% Thai partner, unless it's like very specific industries as an American, and like things like agricultural equipment, shit like that. You know, they're very fucking strict. You know, they're not playing, and we've had to just let every motherfucker in. Like, I'm from New York, everything's bought by foreigners, so cry me a river. You're getting our expats that have money and are investing. We're getting the lowest. We're basically Mexico's welfare system. We're getting the people from the bottom ring of the society, because the people from their society that have the shit together can get proper visas. It's like, they can come over on education visas, you know, they probably have family that could sponsor them, you know. Like, we're getting people who are at the bottom of the economy, and criminals and mafia and all that bullshit too, and human trafficking, which I'm not saying isn't happening in Southeast Asia, but it's just not, you know, like, you look at the United States' relationship with Mexico, and it's a pretty good deal for them, you know, and I don't think it's like as good of a deal for us. It's a good deal for our corporations, where they have very cheap labor and whatnot, you know. In these countries out here, guys, like, you got to remember, you know, policy, whatever these governments do, you have no opinion. Because, you know, like, as a foreigner, like, that's the one thing you want to stay out of, is the domestic politics. You don't want to get anything disrespectful to culture. You don't want to do anything disrespectful to domestic politics. And for the most part, they leave you the fuck alone. And that's true in almost all these countries. As long as you keep the visa good, you pay what you need to pay. Now, the only drawback and an advantage for Mexico, a tremendous advantage, is that you're able to get citizenship, residency. But then when you look, you know, you've got communist marches, where are the cops, you know, like, why should I bring my money to a country that's allowing this to happen? And again, this is no trying to be down on Mexican people. I love Mexican people. I love Mexican food. If you're a Mexican national and you're not with this communist bullshit, and you know, you're based, you have some income, you have an idea for a business, come to Southeast Asia too, because Mexican food is like gold out here, guys. You can really get money doing Mexican food in Southeast Asia, like, you know. So this is not any kind of criticism on the individual, but it is a criticism definitely on the society and on the government there. And, you know, for something like this, you know, come on, the massive protest, where's the cops? They didn't know that, they didn't expect this could possibly happen. Destroy a bunch of people and just assume they're all rich. Some guy maybe put his whole life savings into starting his dream business and employing locals, and he loves the country, and now you're smashing his windows. Like, don't worry, I can assure you guys that just short of a crazy political collapse, you're not going to see anything like that happen here in Southeast Asia. The Western foreigners are perceived positively overall. Thailand, I guess, probably the least so. But even in Thailand, once you get outside of places like Bangkok and Chiang Mai, it's still inexpensive and still a lot of opportunity. The big cities, Phuket, you know, Chiang Mai, I wouldn't say, you know, Phuket, the island entirely, not just the urbanized areas. It's all pretty expensive now for the region, but for someone from Europe or someone from the United States, it's still a huge bargain. It's still very cheap. And I really don't see the Thais ever completely parting ways with the foreigners. The money's just too good. I think they should just take more of a Vietnamese approach if they don't like some of the excesses, and just like, you know, you can have things be legal. You can, like the cannabis, you can have the prostitution, even though technically prostitution's illegal in Thailand. But you know, they you know, it's obviously happening, obviously, right? So, but you could regulate all that. That's not the foreigner, you know. You guys are the ones who decide how that business looks. Like the Vietnamese put it behind closed doors. Like, you know, there's sex for sale, but it's just not like, it's not like the Las Vegas of sex. You know what I'm saying? And in Phnom Penh, you know, it's kind of dirty in some places, but here in Siem Reap, you don't really see it. You see some girly bars, but it's not like real like big pits of degeneracy. You know. Like, I'm not telling you that this is paradise. You know, there's no such thing. There's no such perfect place if you're looking for that. I you know, big uncle hates to break it to you, but I don't want to live in a place where I got to worry about somebody running up on me with a gun. I've thought about all other places in Latin America, and a lot of what we say about Mexico, you could also say about places like Colombia, you know, places, you know, in Brazil, you know, you've got communist Lula down there, you know, you've got chaos and like, you know, people are like hijacking buses, you know, like my homeboy lives in Colombia, in Bogota, and he lives in a nice district, like a rich person area, you know, he makes good money, and he's one of my clients. When he comes to Bangkok, he always stays in Siam, so you know, you can understand the kind of income he's got. And yeah, you know, his building got shot up. He got bullet holes in his walls. So to me, it's like, why would I pay so much? And they're more expensive than Southeast Asia. You could have a much cooler condo in Bangkok and pay way less money, even with all the red tape bullshit and all the shit going on in Thailand. It would still be safer and probably cheaper. Cambodia is a value. People always think, oh, this is a poor country. I saw a Bentley the other day. I've seen Bugattis here. Yeah, it's 2025. You know, I get a lot of liberals. Oh, you just want to live in a poor country. Oh, you're just. I've been watching this country develop at rapid speed. I've learned so much about reality of life by coming to places like Cambodia, Vietnam, Thailand, Laos for over the last 12, 13 years. I've been outside of the United States. And I also was in Australasia. I lived in other Western countries, and I don't really think I'll ever live in a Western country unless it's for like a short period of time, like maybe to get my Italian passport. But, you know, I'm even if I settle down in Europe, it would be in the Balkans most likely. I just don't really want to live in that kind of world, you know. And Mexico is, like, again, a lot like the United States. It's still kind of like a Western country, and you know, it's interesting to me because, you know, you look at just the situation, like with the kind of immigration that's happening, right? So you have people who are coming down to Mexico who want to open up businesses, invest, work online, just drop money in their economy, right? Now, these people cost the country nothing, and you can tax them, you can make them pay for visas, you can do whatever it is you want to do to make some money for the country. But that doesn't mean that the government's going to make, that money's going to get to the people at all. But is that the investor's fault? Like, would you rather be North Korea? Would you rather have nobody come? Would you rather be known as like a complete, like, fucking horror show, like, you know, Marxist dictatorship? You know, and people say, oh, you know, Vietnam, oh, it's a Marxist dictatorship. Vietnam has more of the economy owned by the private sector than the UK. So, you know, let's talk about real Marxists, right? The UK is throwing native European British people in jail for having a problem with the Islamization, the mass of women, by grooming gangs, by illegal migration, degenerates, and all our cultural heritage sites in the West, as well as, and it's not a racial thing. Like, you know, I'm from the United States. You know, we've always been somewhat of a mixed country and country of migration, but you know, everybody came in through some kind of pathway, you know, and you shouldn't get to skip the line. Like, I don't get to skip the line in Southeast Asia. My visa better be correct. My work permit better be correct. Otherwise, you have some real problems in these countries. You think they're playing, you fuck around with their visas and you find out if they're playing. So Southeast Asia, everybody's very nice to you. It's a very hospitable place. It's got a long way to go with some things, but it's very peaceful. You don't have the gun violence. There is mafia, but it's not really going to affect you. As long as you're not like gambling with the Chinese, you're gonna be all right. There's a lot of people who come out here to play poker. So, but that world, you know, I don't know about that world. But yeah, like you just like working online or being a retired person, like, you know, see, Cambodia, for example, doesn't have the best healthcare, but now there's a new airport. It's like 35 minutes from the city. You can get, you know, out to the airport, like 35, 40 minutes or something like that. And it's a lot more accessible to get to Bangkok. It is a little far. I don't know if it's 35 minutes or an hour. It's pretty far, but it costs like $30 to get out there normally, but I got a guy for like 20 bucks. but still, that's a lot to get to an airport. So I'm not saying it's like super like, oh man, you're gonna be in Bangkok in 2 minutes. You still got to get to the airport, then you got to fly to Bangkok, and you got to clear immigration. But it's really pretty easy to get there. It's like take off and land, like, and you'll be at the best hospitals in the region. So, some of the hospitals in Bangkok, like Burmgrad, is like one of the best in the world. So when I went out there, I had a health scare. I wanted to check some stuff, and it turned out to be okay, thank God. But I went to the hospital that the king gets treated at. It's called Samitavej, and it's got like a Japanese hospital attached to it. It's crazy. That place was, that doctor spoke fluent English. Like, he knew much more than the Vietnamese who I had first consulted with. So I would strongly recommend Bangkok for the healthcare. But places like this, you can be here, and you can be in Bangkok in a couple hours if you're in relatively good health. There may come a point where if you're getting older, you might want to permanently be in Thailand. But little by little, these countries are improving. Vietnam is also improving. I have a friend who's a surgeon from Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, and he's over in Korea right now studying with Korean hospitals. And I think he just works in public hospitals. So it's not like a guy who's just like doing it and he's only for the rich. It's like, things are improving, and you can see it. The first time I came to Cambodia, it was so much more dusty, underdeveloped. There was a lot more obvious poverty. It was a lot more crazy, and the riverside was really dirty in Phnom Penh, really sketchy. And now it's getting nice. They've done a lot with it. I mean, it's still got some really sketchy areas, but you can see out here in Siem Reap, life is as peaceful as it gets. This is great. And I'm sure Mexico has places like this. Like, I wanted to live there, guys. It's not like I'm a hater, but I need to speak about this because, we come to these countries, most of us, I'd say there's some degenerates in any group, but most of us with good intentions to bring money to the economy. We don't make trouble for the most part. I mean, like I said, you get degenerates in a group, but we mostly want to bring capital and have peaceful lives. And I can't speak for everybody. There are some crazy people, but I can speak for myself, and I just kind of want to be left alone. And these countries will do that if you keep your visa good and you don't make trouble. They'll leave you alone. And to different degrees, you can have investments. Like I said, naturalization's probably out, but even myself, I'm looking at the Balkans as a long-term option for my naturalization. And yeah, Southeast Asia is a great place. It could turn into all-out chaos probably, but so could the rest of the world. And at least you don't have to worry about anybody robbing you. You don't have to worry about gangs of communists with pink mohawks destroying businesses. If that were to happen here, they would be gunned down in the street. And I'm not just saying here in Cambodia, the Vietnamese might not make a show of it. They might take them away kind of quietly, but it's gonna have the same result, And it's the same down in Mexico. I think it's no different if they were saying something politically against the government, but it's because it's targeting white people, and of course other ethnic groups are expats there too, but it's a lot of the white people who are doing the digital nomad thing, and they're, the gringo, the rich gringo. And the reality is if you're living in Mexico City as a Mexican, you're already making more money than a lot of the rest of your country. So you also are the rich oligarch, even if you're poor compared to people living in villages and whatnot. You just don't have that here because people here have lived through the logical conclusion of that. So the killing fields is enough that people don't entertain those ideas here. Even though, you might see things that look communist, generally in practice, all these countries are market countries. All these countries welcome in foreigners. To an extent, they're protectionist, but they welcome in foreigners to an extent, right? Because there's money in it. Foreigners got that US dollar, right? Foreigners make good teachers, you can sell them to the parents. So and even in countries like Myanmar, where there's currently a war going on, there's ESL jobs in Myanmar that pay pretty good, and Myanmar is very cheap to live. So it's not like these places don't have lots and lots of different opportunities. And I know Mexico also is an enormous country, lots of different opportunities. But if I have to worry about cartels, if I have to worry about violence, if I have to worry about Marxist mobs, to me, that's just a really shitty value proposition. What am I paying for? And I know that, again, people are going to say, oh, there's lots of nice places. I'm sure there is. But there's nowhere in these countries aside from war zones where I couldn't go and for the most part be safe and not worry about any kind of gun violence. Like, yes, occasionally foreigners get robbed in Southeast Asia, like violently, but it's very, very, very uncommon. And usually when you see violence against foreigners, it's because that foreigner was involved in drugs or some prostitution or something they shouldn't have been doing, right? Because I've been out here now for over a decade and I've just never had anything like that. The only scraps I've had out here were with foreigners. Like, I had a problem with a big Korean dude who kept running his mouth. I had problems with crazy foreigners, some crazy guy on meth who pulled out a knife on me for like no reason in the middle of like one of the nicest neighborhoods in Phnom Penh, all fucking bugged out. I've had things happen around me, which is like not really my problem, but like, you know, old dudes walking by in the riverside with their head all busted open, bleeding. But again, these seem like these are people who are engaging in certain types of activities. And, you know, because Cambodia lets in a lot of people, you can get random crazy foreigners. But, you know, again, there's not hella guns everywhere. There isn't a cartel that's gonna like specifically be targeting you. You don't have mobs blaming everything on every problem in their country and their shitty bureaucracy and their corrupt government blaming it on you, but just because, oh, you committed the crime of trying to bring jobs to their country. I mean, what a joke, you know? And this is the problem with the left, is it never takes into account human nature and what the rest of the world is like, right? Like, it's just the morality, Western morality, and they're trying to say, oh, well, we don't live up to Western morality in the West. These other countries don't even share your morality. They'll do things that you think would be like horrendous, you know, but you know, you get people that come to these countries, they visit, they ride the elephant, they go to like Hoi An or something, and then they bounce. You know, it's a big difference when you live in these places for a long time. So I understand the challenges Mexico has, and I wish them the best as a society. But you're an expat, and you have a strong passport and a strong currency. I mean, if you want to be in an inexpensive place, it's not as cheap as it used to be before the pandemic, but it's still pretty inexpensive in Southeast Asia, especially if you go outside of the major tier 1 cities. And it's a lot safer. Like I said, man, nobody's going to shove a gun in your mouth. It's just not going to happen. You're a big uncle. If you appreciate this content, make sure you like, subscribe, share. And you know, if you're expat thinking about moving overseas, we do hourly consulting, we do coaching. If you're a Mexican national who doesn't like the communist bullshit and you want to come out here, open up a cool Mexican restaurant, I got friends out here very successful, especially in Saigon. One dude I know, he's doing like Mexican fusion, like Korean style, Vietnamese style, like chicken. He's doing really, really well. So, you know, get at me. You know, I love you guys, man. I can't fuck with communism. And as someone who does expat consulting, I really just can't recommend the country. I think Southeast Asia is a far better choice and just a far safer choice, even with the challenges. What's up, guys? I'm in Mysore, India. I'm chilling with this cow here. If this cow were to give me mad cow disease, I would want to have health insurance. And if you're going to live as an expat, you're going to want to have health insurance too. He's either biting me or licking me. He's licking me. Aw, hello.
You're so cute.
See, if I get sick from touching this cow, I want to have health insurance, right? So Safety Wing is a good health insurance for people like me who travel around the world and live in interesting places. I'm covered. If I get sick in India, at least I got health insurance. Safety Wing is designed for people who move around and who travel, so it's the perfect health insurance for people who live our kind of lifestyle. So again, no hate on Mexico. I really thought about going there. I ended up going to Albania, which is now the place where I think I may settle down. I really love Albania. Like, I'll still be in Asia. I still got to come out here, keep up business relationships. I love Southeast Asia. I'll keep a presence here. I'll probably keep a presence in India. I have some people under me in jiu-jitsu in India, and I'm way better than I was when I was there. And I'm training every day with my buddy Chris, who's a really good black belt out here at Kiri Jiu-Jitsu Siem Reap. Shout out to Kiri Jiu-Jitsu Siem Reap. If you're coming to Cambodia, you're gonna be in Siem Reap. Kiri Jiu-Jitsu is a great club from Phnom Penh. This is their sister club out here. Really pure, good jiu-jitsu. Good grappling, good vibes, just good people in general. So I'm helping them get that set up out here. And then I may start making my way back through India to see some of those people and put myself back in the Balkans and use it as a base. Maybe try to get, like, you know, a little something for the uncle, like a little homestead. And you know, one of the reasons why I like the Balkans also is just like here in Southeast Asia. Wow, look, it's raining. Let's see, pouring. Like here in Southeast Asia, you know, you just don't really have that violent crime and chaos. You know, they have football hooligans, and like when there's a game, it'll cat off. Like, I was in Tirana and they had a derby, which is like when one team plays the other side of the city's team or whatever. Like, you know, Toronto will have more than one club, and they'll play each other's teams. So that was crazy. That was like, you know, 30, 40 kids rolling deep, like looking to scrap. But they just walked right by us because they were just looking for the other team. They were looking to scrap with the other team. Now, if you came to the Balkans and you started getting involved, like talking shit about the politics or stuff to do with the war, yeah, it would probably be pretty dangerous for you. you know, or if you come down there and disrespect locals or disrespect women in a really like weird way, like it's going to be bad for you, because they don't play in Eastern Europe, you know, like any of those countries really don't play. So, you know, I think in a way, like maybe it's even a little better than Southeast Asia, because, you know, getting your ass whooped real quick, you know, keeps things at a certain social order. Also, I like how, like in Southeast Asia, it's very crowded, but in the Balkans, it's pretty low population. So you have a lot more nature that is like just much more untouched and much less people. So I like that region for myself also, and I have connections in Albania, and I may even eventually make Albania the main base, or maybe Montenegro, but I gotta look around. But like that region looks very good for me. You know, it puts me in a position where I can get to some of the Arabian airports kind of easily. I can get out to Dubai if I have to. I can get out through Turkey to Southeast Asia, direct flights. So I'm very interested in that as my long-term base. But I got a lot of clients, friends who I've set up out here, who spent the rest of their life out here. You know, like I have an endless, extensive network in this part of the world from being out here as long as I have. And now I want to, you know, I want to expand if I can, you know, if you know, God allows me to, you know, and continue to do what I'm doing. Your big uncle would like to just keep living an interesting lifestyle, but also accumulate, you know, something for the retirement of the big uncle and the big auntie, which is, you know, not doing too bad. Business has been great. Things have really picked up for me. The channel's really grown, and I did it my way. I didn't do it by making content for fans. I didn't do it by being a Boy Scout. I didn't do it by, like, you know, being somebody other than myself. And you know, some people hate me, but enough people, I guess, I resonated with, and you know, I'm growing. I don't want to be famous. I just want to be able to like get my service to more people. I want to give people like me options. And of course I work with people that are richer too. I have some friends who are in tech that are really, really rich people, you know, and we used to disagree on politics, man. I used to be way more on the left, you know, like, because my perception was I was a working class kid in New York, and I'd seen gentrification also. And but what made me the left lose me was the whole only white people can be racist, white privilege nonsense. Meanwhile, I'm growing up, like everyone around me is like a different race. Like we're all in like basically the same boat, you know, like to one degree or another. And then I got this fucking ding dong from California trying to explain to me how somehow I'm oppressing them. You know, like I was up in the group homes, guys. I was up in, you know, I went to school with some pretty rough kids. Black people had a very big influence on my childhood. Like I had counselors like this dude Kevin, he was a black Muslim, so I'm sure we would disagree a lot, you know, but as a kid he introduced me to anime. I had a dude named Clint who was basically like my big brother, a black dude. He was also a staff member, super good. He used to take us out to read comic books and shit. He was like in his 30s reading comic books. Just a cool motherfucker, you know. And Miss Brown, old Jehovah's Witness lady, she used to take us to the Apollo Theater. We used to go, you know, raise pizza on Christmas time. So, yo, big uncle didn't grow up with no privilege. Everything I got, I put together for myself. So, yeah, for me, it's never been about race, but I do live in objective reality. And like, you know, I'm not gonna pretend like something doesn't exist because it's politically correct. Like, everybody knows there's probably wonderful places in Mexico, but there's definitely places where you got to worry about communist mobs. It's not that cheap. You got crime, you got degeneracy. You know, you may not have the ghost town drug addict shit as much because they have more of their culture down there still, but you have a lot of other problems, right? Even in some nice places, you got problems. And of course, like I said, there's definitely places that you don't, but it seems like to me, if Southeast Asia was allowing mobs of communists to go through neighborhoods that are popular with expats, Western expats, I'd be out. So if you want to get your family out, I can help you come out to Southeast Asia, whether your business is online, whether you want to, you know, come out here, make a little money as an English teacher. You know, Vietnam's a good market for teachers. China, if you got documents, we can get you jobs out there. And now that whole nother conversation, but the money's good, you know, and depends what you want. You know, I got people in Iraq who got teaching jobs. So if it's just all about the money, you know, your big uncle can connect you to people, and you know, you pay me one time, you get my contacts. And if we work on a bigger project, then you just pay the difference, you know. And I do hourly consulting. Anything we do hourly, I connect to larger services. So if you do an hour with me, then we work together in like a consulting service, like me helping you move somewhere. What we would do is we would just subtract $100 from the total. So that way you don't waste my time, I don't waste your time. Everybody, you know, like I've been doing this for a long time. I used to be really nice. I used to help people, give them lots of free advice. People take. They will, they'll take, and then they'll put you in a position where you gotta bug the fuck out on somebody. And you know, I just say it up front, you know, like ain't shit for free. I'm a decent guy. Once we meet at the first point that this is a business, then we can be friends after. A lot of the guys you see doing the videos, I'm still friends with these guys. Friends with them for years. So these are relationships, guys. Like, this is all I got. This is like, I'm a small family business, me and my wife, man. Like, I'm from very humble beginnings. So we're not wasting time. We're not wasting nobody else's time. We got no time for haters. We got zero time for that. You can definitely go take a fucking walk. And we don't got time for people telling us how we got to do our business, because we've been doing this now for a long time. And we've been able to be successful, and little by little, those of you who have watched us have seen that we've grown, and it's only gonna get bigger. Because your big uncle has vision. Your big uncle is a true believer. And I love people, and I love all the aspects of these different countries. I would have loved to have lived down in Mexico, but they gotta get it together down there if they want to attract any kind of foreign investments like expats. I mean, if you want to bring the Chinese in, have fun with that. Have fun with that shit. Go down to Sanookville here, you want to see what that looks like. Or you know, seriously. Have fun with that shit. But if you want people who are really gonna come down and like fall in love with your country, this is another thing they don't understand, because it's far away. But the Chinese won't eat your food. They're not gonna buy things from your businesses. They're not interested, you know? They're gonna be in your country, and they're gonna be the ones who are getting the jobs for the projects and doing the work. You know, it's gonna be Chinese firms. This is what happens in all these countries, man. Like, you see it in Africa right now. They're like rebelling against the Chinese down there. It's crazy. So don't get it twisted, guys. Mexico is actually a pretty rich country, and for it to be in the kind of disorder and disarray it's in, they have a lot of themselves to look at. So if they don't want you, you don't owe them shit. Come to Southeast Asia. You know, these countries have their share of problems, but there's no guys with mohawks and flamethrowers. There's none of that bullshit here. That shit would get shut down so fast. They don't even know. Their head would spin. You know, people are tolerant here. Like I said earlier in the video, it doesn't matter if you're gay, it doesn't matter if you're straight. They don't have the gender ideology really much here. People, you know, like the transsexual thing, the lady boys, you know, they don't try to play in women's sports. People here have culture. And as long as you respect the culture, you say the things the right way, you don't make trouble, very easy to get on. Nobody gives a shit what anybody else is doing, as long as they get their money and you follow the rules. And I've been doing that now for quite a long time. I made great relationships as these countries have developed. I'm very connected to this part of the world, and I feel a great debt of gratitude to Vietnam, Cambodia, Thailand, even with the recent chaos. And you know, I love you all, Southeast Asia. I'd like to get to Myanmar sometime. I've been to Indonesia. I didn't love the Philippines, but I want to go back. I want to give it a second chance. I want to see Cebu. I think it'd probably be a little bit more my speed. Maybe I give it another go. I want to see Baguio too. But I have some things I need to do. I need to put down some roots soon. I got to make a play. I want to grab some kind of property, and I'm leaning towards the Balkans with that. I think like having that little nest would be dope, and maybe even trying to get like a little jiu-jitsu, like a Kiri jiu-jitsu going on, like down there in the Balkans would be dope. So your uncle's got some ideas, you know, places like Mexico, man, you know, it's the same with the rest of Latin America. Like, they're interesting, you know, and residency, and you can own businesses too. And I know there's a lot of interesting things, but the violence thing and the Marxist thing, and you know, Colombia, these countries, the violence, you know, I know Argentina is pretty cool, but it's, you know, it's got, in my opinion, I think Javier Milei's pretty decent, you know, leadership trying to fix their economy, but there's no telling if it works. There's no telling if it swings the other way. There's no, you know, places like Paraguay look nice, but very remote, you know, no coast. Yeah, I guess if you want that, that's kind of dope, you know. But a lot of the rest of Latin America, it's really just the violence thing, you know? Like, here in Southeast Asia, if a place is poor, it's not necessarily violent. Like, you could go into slums here and it's pretty safe. So it's really not, you know, it's a culture thing. It's a culture thing, it's a mindset thing. And, you know, Southeast Asia is not gonna be a place where anyone's gonna run up and try to rob you, you know? It's just not gonna happen like that. They'll steal your phone maybe, but if you're not paying attention, you know, a motorbike go by and grab it somewhere, but Even in places like Siem Reap, even that's very uncommon here. Almost never. Siem Reap's very safe. And other places in Vietnam, once you get outside of Saigon, also very, very safe. Or Hanoi, maybe some big city areas or popular places with tourists, but you go into the rest of the country, extremely safe. So again, the only ways that you're gonna have major problems in this part of the world will be geopolitical. You don't have to worry about day-to-day violence, and it's a lot cheaper than a lot of the cities in Mexico. So if that sounds like a good deal, if you're a Mexican or if you're an expat from the West and you're looking at fleeing the situation down there, reach me on any of the contact information in the description of the video. Big Uncle will help you get set up out here. You know, if you're looking for someone who's gonna tell you the truth and not sugarcoat it, check out the Facebook fan page. We got reviews. We can provide references. Make sure you brush your teeth, you stay in school, you treat your mother right. Again, I love you Mexican people. I love your food. I love the Las Muertes. I love a lot of your culture, but man, violence, you know, anti-gringo, like xenophobic, communist shit, that shit is played out, guys. Shit is whack. You know, like, you're our neighbor. You know, we should be doing business and getting money. We shouldn't have gangsterism and degeneracy and fentanyl and all this other bullshit. You know, we should be looking after each other. But so far, it looks like the relationship largely works one way, and then the population thinks it's the opposite. But it's like, without that big economy, yo, you're basically Guatemala, son. You know, and I don't even, you know, it's just the truth. Like, you know, tourism is a major sector of their economy, but NAFTA is a big breadwinner for down there. You know, remittance is a big breadwinner for there. A lot of people whose families come over send the money back. So even though taxes on remittances affect me as an expat, I still support it, because I get it. They're taking money out of our economy. Meanwhile, when we come to their country and we bring investment, they burn our businesses, attack our citizens, call us gringos, you know, like. So it's just like they want to be oppressed at the same time. It's like, oh, in our country, oh, you know, we should feel sorry for you. It's, you know, we should give you our social services. We should allow you into our country. We should allow you to come into our country illegally, right? But then when it's like, we come into your country legally on a proper visa and we invest in your country, you want to destroy our businesses. Come on, come on. Southeast Asia is not going to happen like that. Like I said, just short of major political craziness, you know, you do things through the right people, you'll be okay. It's a little Wild West, it is, I'm not going to lie to you, but it's not like that, man. You know, what you've seen happen in Mexico City, it's not going to happen like that out here. Like I said, just short of a war or something really, really crazy. Make sure you subscribe. A lot of people watch the videos, aren't necessarily subscribed. We greatly appreciate you. Stay in school, brush your teeth, eat your vegetables, treat your mama right. And yeah, don't be shy. Reach out to me, man. It's all love. It's all love. And also, Mexican people, yo, it's not too hard to get some of you guys teaching jobs. The passport's not the worst passport. So if you do want to teach English and you have a high level in English, I can find you jobs. Like, it'd be way easier for you than it would be for someone from Pakistan or Africa. Like, especially if you're like more European looking Mexican, it'd be very easy to get you a job. If you're like a Mexican American, oh my God, very easy, very easy. So you might think you're not white, but as far as the Vietnamese, they'll see you like you are, so it's all good. So I love you guys, but that's my 2 cents. I would never put my money in a country that makes it that clear to me that they don't want me there. Sorry. And then turns around and like benefits greatly from my country's economy. Nah. Your passport's all you got. The strength of your country is all you got. That's why liberalism amongst being an expat is like, it's really stupid. Like, hating America, hating your country, really, really stupid. This is the only passport you got. You know, unless you got more than one. And that's what I'm trying to accomplish. And I believe if you're smart these days, you should be trying to accomplish the same. Thank you for watching. Are you thinking of living, investing, buying property, buying land, working, or spending any significant time in Cambodia? Cambodia is an amazing country that offers a wide range of different opportunities for someone who has an open mind. If you're thinking about coming to Cambodia for the first time, we offer a consulting service for people who are looking to have everything done for them before they arrive. They want their housing contacts, their employment, their consultants, whatever they want to find in the country, they want it set up. That's what we do for you. We make it easy so that you don't have to worry about scams, problems, or other pitfalls that new expats face in this amazing country.